Welcome into the Noll Road. Steelers win 21-14, but I tell you what, the concept, you can't be highly concerned after a win. A little bit too homer for me. Okay, I don't think that's what we do here on the Noll Road. Let's do an objective evaluation of what week 3 in New England means for the Steelers team. They get the win, but how optimistic can you be? Here we go.
To the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
All right, welcome into the show. I'm Gavin Dawson, along with New Bear Lisnewski. Buddy, how the heck are you?
Yeah, I mean, Victory Monday, right? It's always better to learn, to go through any of the pain points, or to talk about anything that you want to see more of, or more better, if you'll allow me to butcher the English language for a minute, in a win.
It is, and I think that's great. And I had plenty of time for, believing or being optimistic that there are still so many good players on this team. And over the course of a season, you can get better. But, usually through 3 weeks, if you're getting outplayed on a down in, down out basis like the Steelers have been so far, I would say it's an outlier team that could take this kind of performance once again. Just so many more first downs, so much more yardage, 369 to 203, so much better yardage per play into a quality football team by the end of the season. I guess it's possible, but I lost even more confidence after that win, if that's possible, New Bear.
Well, Bill Parcells was inducted into the Patriots Ring of Honor Hall of Fame yesterday, right? And his big thing was, you are what your record says you are. And right now, you're a 2-1 football team. And what you're talking about is the smoke and mirrors side of the conversation, where had they lost yesterday, we would be saying, you are what your record is, and what your record says you are. You're a 1-2 football team. And you would be deep diving. It's 26 first downs to 17, or, getting outgained by 150 plus yards week in and week out. What I wanted to pick nits with off the top was, yes, they forced all those fumbles, and yes, they came in clutch moments, but they also happened with the guy who fumbled more than any other running back in the league last year on the doorstep, inches away. And if that is what you are counting on to be the type of plays that get made to save your ass, then it's going to be a strap in and ride the roller coaster is a term that, Cam Heyward and others keep talking about how the season is a roller coaster. You got to ride it throughout the course of 18 weeks. And right now, it's one of those like gravity defying things. And as a fan and as someone who's talking about this team, someone who's watching this team with any level of interest beyond, oh, hey, it's Sunday and they're on and this is what we do, and trying to dig in and make sense out of like how they get where they want to go, there's still more questions than answers.
Yeah, I think being a takeaway defense is a great idea. And, TJ Watt says we're a ball hawking unit. That's something Coach always preaches, the takeover culture. We weren't successful last week. But this week, he even said they scouted the Patriots and felt like they were a team that would allow you to be opportunistic. So,
Yep.
That's great. If you want to go out there and put up a 70 takeaway season, I think that's sustainable if you're going to be, that good. But I think ultimately you want to be taking it away while creating tackles for losses and negative plays and penetration and so much pressure on the opposing quarterback that he just can't help but throw YOLO balls. I mean, those are the kind of takeaways that you want, that I feel like are sustainable and predictive that they will, continue to happen. This was just, again, a lot of third and longs being converted by Drake May. And, I was really surprised at the end of the game that the Patriots didn't have something like 35 or 38 points. That's what it played like. You had 2 turnovers in the end zone, and then another turnover where they're marching down the field immediately after that. Somehow the football gods bless you with the opportunity here to get 3 takeaways over the course of 6 plays. And then in the fourth quarter, as New England's going to win it or go ahead, they fumble again there around the 9-minute mark on the great play from Nick Herbig. And I want to salute all of the Steelers players that went in there and got a hand or got a hat on the ball, and Johnny on the spot to make the recovery. Like, that was brilliant, opportunistic defensive football. You just can't rely on that.
Well, and what did they do with those 3 turnovers in 6 minutes? They gained 1 yard in the 3 drives. They're not capitalizing on it. And that's part of going into that, is like when you're forcing fumbles on your own goal, off your goal line, or in, you know, the negative side of the field, and go sustain a drive. And they did that to open this game, where you came out and they were stubborn, like I wanted them to be, even though Jalen Warren ends up at like 2.6 a carry. He's up there in terms of touches. He's up there in terms of involvement. I think the build off of what you're talking about is when the biggest question that I have, you know, beyond some of the circumstantial ball hawking, is that when you look at what this team is and what they're struggling with, and how they scrape by, you know, skin of their teeth in a victory like that, you know, there are so many things that had to break your way, as opposed to enforcing your will, dictating tempo, using personnel, this, that, and the other. Whereas the Patriots just went up and down the field. You talk about the third downs. They also completely blew a 4th down coverage where it was like this, you know, Wilson's pointing at Ramsey and Ram pointing at, and nobody's communicating. We're hearing that week to week. And then you finally get that breakout. Oh, hey, TJ's still TJ, or Cam might be in shape. And then you go, okay, let's pump the brakes, because this defense might actually get better. They might actually be able to do more of this. And then you go, okay, great. Now what do we do about the other side?
Yeah, and there's some positives to build on. You know, I do think it's remarkable how they got dominated statistically despite their best players showing up with pretty big games. How about we applaud Aaron Rodgers and Calvin Austin for the game-winning touchdown? Just an absolute, I don't know, dime. Although Rodgers said post-game he didn't throw it the best. Calvin Austin's just so fast that he went out there and made a play. But I thought it was a pretty dang good pass from Rodgers, too, pretty vintage for the game. And I think the argument to be made here, if you want to look on the positive, is that twice now this season, Aaron Rodgers has just been better. And a team that looked to be unstoppable, like New England had for 6 or 7 straight drives, the only thing that had stopped them was turnovers. But you finally got a stop when all the chips were down, as Drake May just wasn't ready to be that guy that he'd been all afternoon with the game on the line.
Yeah, the concussion that he likely suffered early in the game, where no one checked him out, might have had something to do with that here and there. That's something that's been getting a lot of run across the league, is this supposed independent neurologist and the guy in the booth who's watching these guys crack their head on the turf, and then they just don't even go into the blue tent. It's fascinating stuff. But you know, short of digressing on that or any of the crazy injuries, speaking of which, shout out Najee Harris. Looks like he's going to have a long offseason ahead of him. And, you know, a guy who didn't miss a game for 4 years, damn near loses an eye, and now looks like he tore his Achilles. So a rough run for Najee. Wish him, you know, the best in his recovery, and hope to see him out there again. The thing that's unsettling about this is, you know, Rodgers makes that throw and you say, yeah, it's vintage, because we love the back shoulder. We talked about, we called out, hey, maybe this is one of those Devontae Adams, you know, vintage Aaron Rodgers days where he gets 20 targets and it's maybe a little messy and he catches 11, 12, 13 balls, but, you know, he ends up dunking on people and make a good throw. And I say that not to be negative, but to say that one of the great things about getting through and eking out a win like that is that it allows you to be in a place where you're still talking about, you know, all your goals still in front of you, everything still being in play, from the playoffs to the division to, you know, any and everything beyond that. And they haven't played their best football. And so you go, if you're 2-1 and you have the ability to be extrapolate that, you know, over 15 weeks, you would be 10-5, right? So if you're going to talk about this being a 10, 11, 12 win team competing for the division, competing for, you know, hosting a home playoff game, what does that mean they have to do? They have to improve week to week. And if you can win while you're figuring it out, then you're going to be right there at the end, giving yourself a chance to do just that.
Based on what you've seen through these 3 games, you know, New Bear, and I'll ask you out there, put in the comments down below, do you believe that's going to happen? Are we hoping? Is that a miracle? Is that a somewhat likely scenario? Is that a long shot?
Yeah, I would say the pendulum is probably swung and like stuck right in the middle in terms of from week to week. It's a different kind of thing that you're frustrated with, and then it's also a different kind of thing that you're excited about. And then you go, okay, well, when do we get JPJ back, and what does this look like? They're actually running the defense that they want to, or what does this look like when a YA Black really takes over? What does this look like now? Harmon looks like a big time hit, right? Harmon looks like he's going to be one of them. So like, what is
this?
I
think Harmon and Heyward and JPJ, that's your path through, and maybe YA Black becoming a better player than he's shown so far, which is just a mid kind of promising rookie.
Right, but better than Keanu Benton getting bullied, right? And so better is where I'm at. And Chucky Clark looked good as hell. Peppers looks like he's got a lot left.
Yeah.
Holcomb out-snapped Peyton Wilson, and he put his face in the fan, and now they're competing, and there's competition going all the way back to the summer. This is one of the things that I was the most excited about this team, even before Aaron Rodgers, was that there was depth at places where before guys who maybe messed up, guys who missed a play, guys who dropped the ball, guys who got pancaked, some of these things that we're still talking about as stuff they got to fix. There was no man up next. And there's certainly not one where you said, this, where week to week, you are going to be fighting for your spot on this team.
All righty. The Noll Road here brought to you by our friends at Bet Online, up to $250 in free bets if you use the link in the description. You do have Monday Night Football coming up. Next, you can bet on the NFL casino games. There's an amazing poker room with Bet Online poker tournaments. And anyway, it's giving me a little bit of issue finding the NFL game. Here we go for the spread tonight is Baltimore -4 hosting Detroit. I think that's, that's the concern here, is what happens against good teams if you're the Steelers. You can be your thoughts on Ravens Lions as well. That's a juicy Monday night matchup. I like that. But I think that's what's on the top of the Steelers fans' mind right now is, boy, you had this much trouble against New England. I do think the Patriots are a better team than the one that won 4 games last year. So let's give New England a little bit of credit. But you really got dominated on a down and down out basis.
Well, it's a fascinating thing to think about playing this forward, knowing that everyone thought Green Bay was the best team in football, clear Super Bowl favorite, taking no prisoners, #1 seed, and they got beat by Cleveland yesterday, right? Like they got beat, and it was ugly by Cleveland. Ugly meaning they didn't get blown out, but they sure as hell didn't look like the best team in their division yesterday. And let alone the conference or front runners for the Super Bowl. And that's the thing that anybody who's saying, hey, take a break, is that it's a long season and this is the NFL and everybody's getting paid and everybody was good in college and everybody's 1% of 1%. Like week to week, you're going to go out and see somebody get beat. There's a reason only one team's ever gone undefeated ever. And what you have to hang your hat on at this time is that we have yet to see them play a complete game. We have yet to see either side of the ball be truly dominating for a whole game. And without those two things coming together, or either one of those things being true one way or the other, where you're saying this is an offense-led team, we're going to outscore people, and we can do that on a week-to-week basis, and we feel comfortable and confident, or this is a historic defense that's just going to shut people down, so it doesn't matter if we struggle, we're just going to win rock fights 10-9. And then as the offense figures it out, we're going to take off and it's going to be fine. And with neither of those things happening and being 2-1 and everything still being out in front of you, what you have to be excited about, what you have to be talking yourself into beyond hope, is that they have enough all pros. They got enough guys with fresh legs to keep it fresh for 18 weeks. And that the answers are in the respective rooms in the building, because we haven't seen their best ball yet. They're 2-1, and it's only going to get better from here.
Wow, that's some strong hopium, New Bear. You got your fastball working today.
The thing
you
about
still
it,
can't run it. You can't protect.
The thing about it is you know what it's been like for the past few years, where you go at the end of the game. maybe Kenny Pickett makes that throw, and then you're trying to talk yourself into believing in Kenny Pickett. And people who will point to Kenny Pickett being a legit Sunday guy will talk about his win-loss record and his QBR in the fourth quarter and the game-winning drives. I think the difference is with Kenny Pickett, it was hope. With Kenny Pickett, it was, look at this moment where this play gets made. Why can't you do that for the rest of the game? With Aaron Rodgers, you're expecting those things. With Aaron Rodgers, you're wondering what it's going to take for everyone else to level up. You're wondering why Arthur Smith can't take the reins off. You're wondering where this dream tight end room has suddenly turned into a nightmare. And then you bring that back to the offensive line. And you say, well, we have to play quick game, or we have to do these things to mitigate what we can't do, being in the shotgun and just dropping back and going 3-5-7 laser cannon rocket ball.
Yeah, well, they're the opposite of that right now. It's the most frustrating thing as a fan is watching your quarterback consistently throw 5 yards short of the chains on third down. And the offense just grinding to a halt. I guess you could say maybe if they were down more, maybe if New England had converted a couple of those and it was 21-14 New England halfway through the third quarter instead of still 14-7 Patriots, maybe Aaron Rodgers starts letting it go, because at some point when they need a score, all of a sudden you see the ball going downfield, and I don't think the protection just becomes immediately better. They're just more aggressive, and I would love to see that right now, because right now it is a boring, pathetic, soft football team, even as you got a couple of superstar players to flash for you yesterday.
Well, I mean, he punted when we could have kicked the 60-yard Boswell field goal, right? Vrabel's for it. And some of these Dan Campbells of the world, they're going for it deep, deep, deep in their own territory early and often. And I'm not saying that you should do it every time, because you got to play your team and you got to play the game script and game flow and all those things, your identity and how you're going to live with that if it ends in a loss. And, anybody out there who's wondering who Mike Tomlin still is, or wondering what Mike Tomlin still wants to do, not kicking Chris Boswell there, punting and playing field position, which, what was it like? It ended up being like a 23 or a 26-yard punt. It's not like they pinned him at the 1 and it was some coffin corner thing, right? So, like, there is a clear way that this dude thinks and wants to manage the game. And so your point that you just made is a great one, because at what point do they come out and go play action over the top, even off a couple of stuffed runs? Like, we know what the data shows, and we also know what the eye test does, watching a linebacker have to honor the play action fake and then throwing Freiermuth in the seam behind him, like coming out and saying, all right, even if DK isn't double coverage, we're going to trust him to go run past everyone, and we're going to throw one up, and it's a 50-50 ball, but not with that, man. Like, when are we going to see some of the aggression?
They did that late.
Right.
I feel like when we get the film, we're going to see a lot of that in closing time, and that's your Aaron Rodgers advantage. But why are you, so conservatively forcing yourself into that fourth quarter situation? I guess until the other team has a 2-touchdown lead, we're just going to kind of coast and not to turn it over. Boring. That's the mark of a team that doesn't have enough targets to throw to. Front office, go do something. Get you somebody who you trust on 1st and 10 in the first quarter. They don't even want to run a real offense.
Did you see some of the now that the Saints look like they're done for, right? Some of the Chris Olave screenshots floating around there. I wonder what you like. You start get off Cheetah and let Romeo Dobbs go, or any of these other names that are out there. That Chris Olave with the concussion history, if he doesn't have that, he's probably worth a 2. With the concussion history, you might be able to get him for a 4. The same way we were talking about Randy Moss years ago, what it might take to get Cheetah in the fire sale in Miami. But
okay, let me frame it like this. That's a good topic. Is this team good enough to still entertain trade ideas? I would say yes. You probably need at least a wide receiver. I don't know. Maybe you need an offensive lineman too to really contend. But one of the two would be great. Okay. You have players producing now. Cam Heyward, the sack, the forced fumble, the tip pass, 6 tackles. Cam Heyward is back. Derek Harmon is here. Legit impact in 35 snaps. Had a sack. Seems like they really got one here with their first round pick. And TJ Watt with the 2 sacks, the 2 TFLs, the 2 QB hits, the forced fumble, and the fumble recovery. Just a few days after we showed faith in TJ in a video last week addressing the no sacks in 6 weeks, he has an absolute breakout. I think you can feel good about portions of your defense. Maybe Bentley helps your linebackers. Holcomb gets his first start in a couple of years. He looked pretty good. Maybe you got Wilson in the better role. So, what do you really need? You need a dominant nose tackle as well on defense. Like, that would change a lot. But with Heyward and Harmon coming on, you might have enough to disrupt on that side of the ball right now. So what do you think about that question, New Bear?
Well, what I'd like to see is when we're under center, our offensive linemen are in 3-point stances instead of 2-point stance. What I'd like to see is some very acute attention to detail relative to the way they're running the operation on offense. I would very much like to see a commitment to either force feeding, DK, Calvin Austin III, right? Because like when you go through it, Aaron Rodgers only threw 23 balls. They ran the ball more than they threw it, and that's where I wanted them to live. That's what I challenged them to do. And then you look at it and you go, Austin's 3 out of 5, Warren's 5 out of 6, Metcalf's 3 out of 4, like high percentage throws because everything's short and everything should be living in a world where it's a high percentage thing. And then you see this and you go, well, why can't you do that on first down on the first drive and just take a shot and let these guys know that we're here and we're not going to stop challenging, attacking, right? Like, it's almost like a bend but don't break offense. It's almost like how do we not strip the guys that they've had under center and in the gun in the post-Ben world, and even at the end of Ben's career, Matt Canada nonsense. So, like, now we're sitting here, and all we talked about all offseason, and all these tight ends, and they were going to become matchup nightmares, and the offensive line is so bad that we can't run real passing tree, real passing concepts. Okay, so you have 2 choices. You can either go get Cheetah and or someone like him where the defense is so scared that they have to double and play Tampa or you have to go give up some assets to go improve this offensive line so that you can actually run the offense that you say you want to run based on the personnel that you say you're good with, right? Like, something has to change where it's either a play calling thing and a scheme thing and we're going to live with what happens, or we're not good enough and we have to be hyper aggressive at the trade deadline. Waiting for either one of those 2 things to happen is going to be the most fascinating narrative as we go through the next 6-8 weeks.
It absolutely is, and the idea that the frustration with the coaching staff could reach a critical juncture is fascinating. I said it on the preview show a couple of days ago. We're starting to hear more volume from deeper sources that maybe frustration with Mike Tomlin could reach a breaking point. And I don't think I would ever bet on that happening, but the possibility of it happening now seems more likely than ever if some of these games would not go their way. And even Aaron Rodgers, wouldn't make you a significantly better team. I think that those are a lot of ifs with 14 games to go, but I think a lot of Steelers fans would believe that, that's the kind of season we're going. So the headline is Tomlin hid Ireland's schedule from players until after the Patriots game. I get it. You want them focused. You don't want them thinking ahead. And maybe that was the difference in, being aware enough, present enough to create 5 takeaways and survive in New England. To me, New Bear, I guess my concern with Tomlin is there's too much time spent on this part of coaching, the mood, the training, the atmosphere, the tone coming from the coaches, the urgency that he always likes to talk about. I get it, right? And that's a part of coaching. But what we need is not trying to win football games by just not turning it over for 3.5 quarters. I know we're not in charge of the offense, but you have to set the emphasis more to let's be dangerous than, and this happening on both sides of the ball where I don't feel like they're modernized enough.
Sorry, it glitched on me, so I thought you stopped talking.
I'm getting this fixed, by the way. I've been on the phone with AT&T 3 times in the last week. Like, guys, I'm a gigillionaire. Why am I buffering every time I'm trying to talk football with my guy Newbear on StreamYard?
To piggyback off what you were saying, how many times did you notice how many times Aaron Rodgers pointed to the sidelines after a play was made?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
One of the things that I've taken away from not just yesterday, but throughout the course of training camp or throughout the course of him getting acclimated, feeling comfortable, already, on the sidelines, and you see the cameras going back and forth. I believe right now they believe their margin of error is so small that when you see those plays get made, that is something that they repped throughout the week. And then when they have success with it in the game, or it gets called in the game, or maybe it's something they say, hey, if we get this is how we're going to adjust to it. So it's a in-game adjustment that they rep the previous week or based on a previous look. Because you know how much of a copycat league it is, right? When a defense stops something that another team is doing, a team might not necessarily run that, but because another team had success with it, they bring that shit to Sunday in their toolbox. Offense is the same way in terms of trick plays or any kind of conceptual stuff. When you watch the Sunday night game, Travis Kelce, for everybody talking about him being washed or what he does or does not have left, one of the great points that was made was that he might not be a superstar anymore, but he's a great complementary player, and that his role is still clearly defined in as much as if you put him in a one-on-one situation where he has a two-way go on 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, he is going to 1-foot you in and out, put you on the yo-yo, and he's going to get that first down. He's going to immediately get tackled as soon as the ball crosses the first down line, but they're going to move the chains because he's going to run some variation of an option route, and he's going to win with technique, with footwork, and Patrick Mahomes is going to look for him first, look for him last, and that's what they've done for the better part of a decade. There is none of that on this offense right now. They believe DK Metcalf runs that is a signature thing, not even like to the back shoulder level with the Devontae Adams and crew in Green Bay that Aaron Rodgers was so famous for. There is nothing that this team does yet. There is nothing that they feel comfortable enough with to hang their hat on. So is that going to become Freiermuth and the Seam abusing teams who dare to run Tampa 2? Is that going to – you know what? I'm wrong. The one thing that they are willing to do is throw jump balls to either Mount Washington or DK Metcalf in the red zone. Outside of that, there is nothing that they hang their hat on coming out. There is nothing that they hang their hat on where you go, when they get to midfield, they want to run Yankee like what was run at them 2 weeks in a row and get a deep crosser. When they get to midfield, this is where you're going to get the Ben Johnson trick play, flea flicker. Until they have that thing where they come out week to week, where every week it looks like, oh my God, that thing we repped actually worked. Nothing's going to change.
I like the Calvin Austin back shoulder. That worked against the Jets. There was a PI that was not called. Yesterday it worked. So hopefully that could be the beginning of some bread and butter. Updates on storylines and narratives that were going into this game. How do they look now? They were looking for their first win at Gillette since the late 2000s, the Matt Castle season in New England. So they broke that bit of history. They're now 14-5 against the Patriots, or I guess 5-14 against the Patriots since Tom Brady's reign of terror began there. Even losing to Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi in recent seasons. So it's nice to get that off you.
Oh yeah, Bailey Zapp. That's
Caleb Johnson did not play at all, did he? Did Caleb Johnson play?
No.
Was he in there? No. Did we get the tight ends more involved? Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit more involved.
I just want to see it aggressive. I want to see Aaron Rodgers has the ability to throw a ball right through someone's ear hole in the seam. It's not just back shoulder stuff on the sidelines. I don't need to see Pat Freiermuth running deep overs and crosses and dropping balls on the sideline. Like his bread has been buttered in the seam. Roethlisberger loved him in the middle of the field. And when you get stubborn ass Tampa 2 because they're shutting your run game down to the 2.6 yards a carry, you have to make them pay in the seam. The same way that every other team looks at it and says, there's 2 hole shots. And Aaron Rodgers can throw 18 to 22, depending on how deep the safeties get on the sideline, and it's in the middle of the damn field. Like, they have to make a decision. We're either going to commit to the run, overcommit to the run, even if it's 3 yards of carry in a cloud of dust. And that's what we're going to do until we can break through against Tampa.
I think a lot of people would, what's that? So I was going to say, I think a lot of people would choose to fire Terrell Austin right now. If you could pick any coach, it'd be Austin or Tomlin. I would love to see what a different OC would come in here. And I'd love a candid Aaron Rodgers right now off the record. Like, what do you think of this game plan? Because right now, to me, it's trash, and it's scared football. It's weird.
So the big overreaction is that we want to see more aggressiveness. I think that's where we're both at, right? Where you want to see them say, these are our guys that we're going to take our shots with, because if they're doubling DK, that means Calvin Austin is singled up and he can really run. So if you get him on a deep post, get him on a stutter go, and just take the shot. And then at the same time, if DK really is the super freak, stop just throwing, little screens to him, pump one of those and go. Throw the sucker off into the slot. Let Freiermuth go run. Let Jonnu Smith go run a wheel route and back shoulder them, or take the opportunity to not be afraid of what might happen. Like, this is like, it feels like going back through like the Lombardis or the Hank Strams and Curly Lambos of the world. There's 3 things that can happen on a pass and 2 of them are bad. Like, that's the world we're still living in 2025.
It's what you get with a Tomlin coach team, I feel like, man, because we want to play defense and not turn it over. And if that's going to be your head coach, then I don't think you're ever going to break out of preferring to win games like that. This
is something I was going to say earlier that we just got going back and forth about it. One of the things that when you talk about a Tomlin coach team, what does that mean, right? And the scheme stuff has been the big question mark for years. And what it really comes back to is, because they have so many dudes and because they believe in their dudes. What did you hear Vrabel say? Vrabel said, they're a really good front, but we know where they're going to be. Like, Vrabel's pissed that they lost this game because they got up and down the field on this team, and the turnovers and literally like kicking themselves. The one on the sideline, just barely nudging that ball out of bounds when it's 14-14, and it looks like they're again, going to take or would have taken the momentum and taken the lead, fumbling on the inch line, et cetera. So Vrabel said they're a very good front, very, very good front. We know where they're going to be. He's pissed they lost this game, because that is the ultimate thing about Tomlin teams is they believe in their dudes so much that you should just go win your one-on-one matchup. You should defeat the double team. You should wreak havoc. And at the end of the day, we're going to play field position. We're going to love this rock fight mentality. We're going to shrink the game. And he always talks about the components of it, right? That's one component of it. There's 3 phases. All these guys, for him, it comes down to individual components. And TJ Watt's just going to go win and be better, so we don't need to trick him and dick him. And you know what? On Sunday, the Browns just proved that if you're even as good as the world-beating Green Bay Packers look through 2 weeks, if you just show up and do what you think is going to allow this other team to roll over, and you let them get momentum and you give them a shot to hang around, you can bleep around and find out.
Yeah, and I have questions about Green Bay's offense at this point. Tucker Kraft out, Jaden Reed out. Like, did they hit their tipping point offensively where they're going to be a dumpster fire? And Cleveland's defense is top 5. It might be even better than that. I think that's something to look at. Like, how many teams are going to be held under 2 scores when they play Cleveland? I think there might be a decent collection of by the time you get to the end of the year.
Yeah, and their offense is putrid. And then you go through that and you go, why would you go into that game? Because this is how Tomlin's going to go into that game. This is a perfect rock fight game. This is the ultimate AFC North type game. This is like the Ravens and the Steelers used to be back in the day. We'll be happy to win this game 16-15, 10-9, anywhere in between. And you go, well, what would happen if you hit one of those shots early to DK, to Calvin Austin? What happens if you use Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith doubly in the seam? What would happen if you get up 14 points on this team and force them to chase? Because right now they are literally playing like you did before you got Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, man. We need some coaching adjustments. I did have a lot of fun watching the guys make plays and save the day. It's not all dark clouds. I do want to acknowledge that and salute Herbig and Eccles and Watt and Heyward and Holcomb and Peppers and Wilson. Did I forget anybody that was in on one of those takeaways?
So that's the thing is, like, think about that laundry list, and JPJ is not even out there, and Bentley isn't even suited up yet, and like they have, it's a $200 million defense, and that's just what they want to hang their hat on. Fine.
Yeah.
Then you know what you have to do? Establish the running game, and then you have to throw over the top off of that. Like, if that's what you're going to do, I think we would all sign up for that. We would all sign up for a bunch of runs and a bunch of deep balls, and then if we have to punt, we have to punt. What everyone doesn't understand is, what are we even doing with this rinky-dink and dunk?
The short passing game is not working.
And
There's enough data.
Work.
No, it's pathetic. You're not the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. Bet Online is our sponsor here, up to $250 in free bets. There's the line for the game in Dublin at the Croca. I believe that's what they call it there, the locals. Vikings -2, Steelers +2. Minnesota looked dominant against Cincinnati and Jake Browning, but that's not hard to do. So, I'm feeling pretty good about maybe throwing a little money behind the Steelers here coming up against Carson Wentz, probably in the Vikings in week 4 of your NFL season. Okay, fastest payouts guaranteed, unmatched game integrity. Bet Online is the best place, no matter where you are around the world, to get down on your NFL weekend, and we have a referral link in the description to help you out. Back here shortly with some film takeaways as soon as the All-22 gets posted, and a headline update here as we continue. Until next time, we'll see you on the Noll Road.